Alright, well, so while Dwarf Fortress is doing its loading thing and making me go deaf as a result, let's turn it down a little. Um, I am going to talk about D&D for my attempt number 347 million. Don't know what it is. Somebody asked about it, and why not? So, last thing I was doing was digging the watercourse. Great. Now I need to go back and produce the hatch to seal it. So, anyhow, D&D is what I consider a great game because it combines tactical considerations with roleplay. Wrong one. Add order, grate, add a wooden grate, just one, and is it a hatch? Bars maybe, no, it's barrels. Let's just stick with grate. Yeah, so the game itself is, relatively simple. Build, floor hatch, no, wall grate, W. Needs a wall grate. Wonderful. Well, I'm building one. Yeah, so it really sparks and works on that whole creativity thing. It helps develop, somewhat develop social skills and stuff. But it really, really works the imagination. And I think that's part of the charm of it, really. And it's the kind of facet that really it gets undervalued. Door. So I always seem to go one too far with that. So yeah, it's fairly simple what it does for us in terms of that sort of stuff. Oops, wrong way. And yeah, it's 5 doors completed, some buckets, step ladders, hatch covers, floodgates. Great. Pardon the pun. Yeah. And as a result of doing all that sort of stuff, it really also encourages reading, research, a lot of the good sort of meta skills, things you should know, things you should work on, general knowledge, medieval history. The only reason I know anything about that is because I played D&D. Designate, plant, gathering. And chop down some trees. That'll do it. So yeah, and D&D's got a long history, and there's plenty of stuff out there that'll tell you all about it. It's goes back to the 70s and that sort of stuff. Q, I might have to get rid of. No, it's build, construction, remove construction. Oops. X? No, that's floodgate. Shift X? No. I'm going to have to look it up later. So, yeah, to build fortification, no. Construction. Fortification. Great. There's that word again. That'll do. So, yeah, it's that sort of stuff about the game that really makes it interesting. And it sort of encourages you to develop a certain set of skills. No, I want wall grate. Needs wall grate still. I'll give it a minute or two. What season am I in? Oh. Cancels eat, needs item inaccessible. Great, can't get to food. Where is he? I don't want my dwarves to start starving to death, although it'll make for a quick game and somewhat a potentially interesting one. This whole game is structured around, it steals tropes from D&D all over the place. I've had friends who have lost their entire Dwarven Fortress to wyvern attack, and the threat of goblins and kobolds wandering in and stealing your stuff is always present. One grate has been completed, brilliant. So I can build wall grate. All I need to do is drop it in, say, here, and it's done. Whoops, too far. And that will put a grate in there to stop things getting through and swimming into my fortress. Oops. So wait for the dwarf to fit that. So yeah, this is borrowing from all over the place, really. The hit location system is actually taken from apparently Cyberpunk. So now I'm going to dig a channel, and the channel is going to be there. So I need to dig this spot to this spot, and that should do it. All right. Yeah, and the whole idea of 7 dwarves wandering off into the wilderness is straight out of Snow White. It's kind of naff like that. But anyhow, D&D got built back in the 70s, or written back in the 70s, I should say. But the idea was so great that people just started copying it all over the place, which is amazing. Build, workshop, fishery. Which one's the fishery? H. So we're just going to have a little fishery over here, and this is what they're going to do. They're going to go fishing. Actually, build it just there. That looks like a nice place for it. And yeah, so back then there was basically, it evolved out of war games. It then moved on to absorbing some of these role-playing ideas, which are now commonplace, but back then it was just completely unheard of. And there's a couple of little histories all over the place that sort of describe how it achieved its goals and that sort of stuff. I want to make these not pet passable. No. And that sort of stuff. Close that one. That one's closed, and that one's closed. Yeah, Dwarf Fortress involves a little bit of micromanagement. So, but evolving from those core ideas, you had a lot of really cool game systems or variations on the whole D&D idea. It needs blocks and mechanisms. I've got to build some way of producing mechanisms. So down into the dark, and dig, little dwarf, dig. So yeah, sorry, just concentrating. The actual game then evolved. So you had huge amounts of variations. Some of them insanely complicated, some of them gratuitously simple. But they're all variations of a theme, usually fantasy orientated, although sci-fi stuff did sort of emerge because of, thankfully, Star Wars and that sort of stuff, and just sort of evolved from there. And then then it's sort of spilled up into other genre stuff as well. So oh god, when was it? Oh, struck something interesting. Workshop. Was it Mason's Workshop M? So yeah, by the end of the 70s, you had a number of variations of game systems. Into the 80s, you had some of the classics emerge, such as Call of Cthulhu, drawing on the H.P. Lovecraft genre stuff. You also had the evolution of the sci-fi stuff, F1. And so all this sort of meshed together to produce many and varied games. By the time you hit the 90s, you had the emergence of Cyberpunk and Shadowrun, which are two near-future dystopian sci-fis. Actually, back in the 82, was it? Maybe 83. You had Car Wars, which is basically riffing on the Mad Max movie, or movies. I don't know if there was a sequel that come out by then. Anyhow, so those two sort of things kicked it off. Then you had the World of Darkness, which was sort of gothic horror, kind of playing a little bit on the Call of Cthulhu stuff, but less about the cosmic horror and more about the personal horror. And that's when I sort of started to lose track of the game systems and that sort of stuff, because there's a lot of stuff coming up and it sort of proliferated all over the place. By the late 90s, you had D&D 3rd edition emerge, and basically the open gaming license, which was a bit of an innovation, but also shifted the focus purely onto D&D, and a lot of the other game systems and game companies did kind of flounder. Things have emerged with a lot of indie gaming coming out in the early 2000s, which has led to some really cool innovations and that sort of stuff. A lot of experimentation in terms of gameplay and whatnot. And it's just, that's sort of, I suppose, the game industry in a nutshell, really. Can't really say much about these days because needs bed. I want door. Building present. Well, of course there's a building present because I have one door. Okay, cool. Well, I'll go back to the surface and commission my carpenter to procure more doors. Workshop. So let's see. What do we need? We need a door. How many doors do I want? 4 will do for now. We want to then beds. Probably another 7 beds, because who knows, will show up before winter. Somebody always does. We need a block, actually. Block. We'll go with 2 blocks would do for now. And that should do on that part. Now, actually, profiles. T, max priority. We'll need the blocks first. The rest of it can wait. Because we've got to put a well in, because I've had a whole colony of dwarves basically pass on because they had no water. Well, I thought they had water and they were going to get it, and then the water froze and they couldn't get hotter water, and we ran out of other things dwarves like to drink, let's say. So as a result, didn't go too well for that colony, as they all slowly dropped off and shuffled off this mortal coil. But getting back to the game stuff. So regardless of the game system, most of them tend to follow a particular form, I suppose. You have, in D&D it's known as classes. In other game systems they have other words for it, but a way of defining the character. And that becomes, your character's role, position, idea, central concept, whatever you want to call it. That's sort of what they are. Q. Now I can build some mechanisms. I wonder if I've got a masonry dwarf. Prioritize. Q. Let's see. Make rock stuff. Wait a minute. I built the wrong thing. Threat. Okay. Build workshop. I needed the not the masons one. The one that goes with it. The mechanics workshop. Whoops. My bad. Let's just drop it down this end and leave it there. So they have that. They have some more sort of technique for skill resolution. So a way of determining whether or not you succeed or fail at what you plan to do. What are the consequences for doing so, and that sort of stuff. So, basic game ideas, game mechanics. And that's what they usually get referred to as game mechanics. Every class or type of character has special abilities, things that are unique to them in some cases. Dwarf manager? Oh, okay. So the woodcutter's doing nothing. Now how do I get to this? Now, from memory, it was zoom to unit? No. Zoom to unit. Get the skill list, but skill list we change it to preferences, labor, and then use the little keys to get to the fact that they need to be doing stuff in fishing and farming, but that stuff should be gathering plants, doing milking, shooting, spinning, cooking, probably not. That should do for that one. And then unit, go down to the next one. Probably not the manager, but the hunter definitely. So Z, preferences, labor. Oops. Fishing, farming related. We want you to be gathering plants. And that should do that one. And then finally the final dwarf down the list, the farmer, who probably has this skill anyway. Farming related, do that one. Yes, he's gathering plants anyway. We need to make sure we get enough plants, so designate plant gathering. I'm going to do everything between my planned fishery and home base. And then probably also cut down some trees. That should do that. That will help. So yeah, and you know, there's something to be said for getting around with a bunch of friends and talking all sorts of random stuff as you play the game. I mean, half the fun you have with this game is the really silly jokes that you have, make up, whatever. And you know, as a social experience, it's a really good game for that sort of thing. So while my dwarves are doing their stuff, and I'll check on how they're going, the medical dwarf is doing nothing and the manager's doing nothing. Seems fairly typical. I shouldn't pick on doctors that way. I'm certain they do a lot of good stuff. Livestock, we have some others. Oh, there's a bunch of ravens and carp and pike. And nobody's died, thank goodness. Bound to happen. This is Dwarf Fortress after all. I need to build some sort of depot. Okay, build D for depot, trade depository, and I'll build it in that huge pile of logs, because that way we'll have somewhere to stash it. And then I put a wall around it and a bridge over the top of it, so that things can come and go, but I control access to it. So yeah, and out of all my friends, like I've got one mate who's a manga artist, and he's been a graphic artist for as long as I know him, ever since high school really. Makes great fun of it. Another guy works as an industrial chemist. Another, you know, everybody chose what they were doing, you know, fairly early on, because you know, you work out what you enjoy and you chase down it. And so, yeah, just sitting around the table talking stuff with these people and many others besides, it's been, you know, really interesting. I've got a bunch of medieval friends who do medieval reenactment from various sorts of sword plays through to costuming to feast preparation. Don't know what the proper word is. Cookery for feasts and stuff. You know, and that's all just, they enjoy doing that stuff. So, you know, it all pays dividends when, you know, you've got this opportunity to have fun and explore what you're doing. Anyhow, that's enough for now, and my dwarves have had fun, and it's getting late, so I want to go have a nap because I'm an old man. So yeah, anyhow. But yeah, anyhow, see ya.